What's going on, good people? Hello, hello, hello. Came on here 8 o'clock just to make sure I'm good to go. Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to be reviewing my book, His Leadership, Her Trust. Okay, yeah, I'm good. I see my audio is up, so I am straight 8. Last time I had difficulty trying to figure out how to end this joint. Let me make sure I'm... Yeah, okay, anyway. So, as I said I was going to do, I am reviewing my book, His Leadership, Her Trust, and we're going to dive right into it. But before we do, let me explain to you who this video is for, or who this lesson is for. Let me go back to my first page because I created this slide. Like I said, we're going to be doing His Leadership, Her Trust. I made heck of notes. I did this presentation years ago, and I'm going to be doing it again tonight for the peoples. So who is this for? Who is this book for? Who is this review for? It is for if you are a single man in a relationship, or you want a relationship, you need to know how to lead in a way that a woman will actually trust you, respect you, and actually want to follow you. If you are in that station, then this book review is for you. If you are a single woman, and you'll discover what healthy, godly leadership looks like in a man, so that you can recognize it in your either current relationship or in future relationships. And so, if you're a single woman, or if you're looking for a relationship, this review will explain to you exactly what that man looks like, so that you can recognize it. If you are a married man and you are struggling because your wife asks too many questions about everything, she resists your leadership, and she doesn't want to submit or follow to you, whichever word you choose, then this book, this review will actually change everything about that whole situation. It will fix all of that. It will give you the specific guidance about why she's doing what she's doing and what you can do about it. And if you are a married woman and you are struggling or wrestling with what it means to actually follow or submit to your husband, and for some reason you just can't seem to find the ability to do it because of something that either he's doing or something that you are looking for that he's not giving you, this book will explain to you exactly what that is and exactly how to go about serving in a way and submitting in a way, whichever word you choose, that is God-fearing, God-pleasing, and will help your marriage and relationship in the future. So this is who this book is for. I wrote this book exactly 10 years ago, in August of 2015. And so I'm going to review it chapter by chapter. First of all, can we recognize the picture going on here? You know, your boy looked exactly the same. I mean, that was August 2015, and look at me now. Look exactly the same. But we're going to be reviewing this book chapter by chapter. I'm going to be sharing some things I've learned in the 10 years since I've written this book. And so no matter where you are in your relationship journey, whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're engaged, whether you're married, this series is designed to strengthen your understanding about leadership, trust, communication, and how all that intertwines inside a relationship. We started our business in 2000. Bernie and I. Bernie is still on vacation. She'll be back soon. So we started our business in 2000 with initially engaged couples. We were working with engaged because we had just been married for 2 years and some change. We got married in '97. We had just got married 2 years and been married 2 years and some change. So we started our business, and there's a whole backstory behind that. I've done videos on that, so just go check the videos and see our whole backstory if you want to read about it. But then in 2005, we started working with married couples. And those married couples allowed us we had a little bit more experience then, and then we started learning a little bit more about the different dynamics in marriages and so forth. And then 2006, We bought 14 acres in Bowie, Maryland, and built our relationship boot camp. And our relationship boot camp, it was a team building ropes course specifically designed to improve the communication and trust and leadership in relationships. We did that for 7 years, as you can see with the videos, with the pictures that you have that I put up here. These are some of the activities that we built, and these are some of the couples and groups that have been on the activities. We did that for 11 years, from 2006 into 2017. And then, child, we needed a break. We needed a break because maintaining 14 acres is no small thing. It's a lot of work. And so we still worked with clients individually, and when we had the property, we since sold it, we would still take couples out there to do our individual activities. But since then, and even up until now, we work with couples individually, more on a one-on-one basis. That is more manageable for us at this stage. And so, but then in 2017, 2018, we dove deep into the area of millennials. Now, millennials, a little different. Millennials a little different than my generation, I'll say. They think differently. Millennials have different experiences. And so I had been, up until that time, doing a lot of coaching and mentoring of millennials while they were dating. And I learned that their experiences were, they didn't have the same experience. They didn't want to sit around and listen to me and my advice, my old advice, tell them how they could best manage or maintain or sustain their relationships. What they prefer was that they liked learning from each other. So I came up with this idea to create the Millennial Dating Chronicles web series. It's the first time I've ever done a web series like that. And it started out with an idea from a friend of mine, Jeremy. She gave me the idea. And so I took that, and then I interviewed a lot of millennials and then put them on my YouTube platform. We had 3 seasons, really 2.5 seasons. We started the 3rd season, but then we kind of stopped in the middle of it. This reel is a promo reel that you're seeing now that we promoted for season 2. And so we had our own YouTube channel and everything. So that was very, very fun. But what that did was it got me into the millennial headspace to find out what was unique and what was different and what was specific about their relationships. Because I was still approaching relationships from my experience of working with other couples who are around my age and around my generation. They kind of thought like I thought, but millennials thought differently. So that allowed me to see how millennials move and how they make decisions and what it is that they do and what it is that they value in terms of their relationships. So so we started that September 2018. So that allowed me to really see and work with millennials and so forth. So we did that for a couple of seasons. Simultaneously, I got plugged into the millennials at church. I had been doing a lot of work with them and serving with them in ministry. And I found that there was no community for millennials. They were really complaining about there's no community for millennials at their church, at the church I was belonging to at the time, and still do. And so I asked the pastor if I could do some research about the needs of millennials in the church. And they gave me approval, and they said, go ahead and do it. And so they came up with the Millennial Millie Connect. It was a group of millennials that came together, and they were like, we want to, let me go to the next slide. Come on now. There we go. Millie Connect. And so they came up with the group Millie Connect, and I was responsible for kind of creating the structure for the ministry and what it is that they would do. And how they would work together. So I assembled a team of 7 people who had volunteered, and we all met together for several months, and we came up with the structure for the ministry for millennials. We took that to the church, and when it came time for the millennials to actually run it and take over what I had, kind of helped set up, there wasn't anybody that wanted to run it because the church had specific criteria, as you know churches do. They have specific criteria for what you need to do and how you need to be involved in running a ministry in the church. They were like, no, we're not going to do that. So they maintained the Millie Connect outside of the church, and that thing blew up. It was crazy. They had, it was like 320 people in the group me chat, and it was going 24/7. People got started dating. People got married. People had some children. A lot of people connected over that Millie Connect. But I was on the ground floor and kind of was working with them, and that gave me more insight into seeing how millennials move, operate, make decisions, and so forth. And when it came, let me see. Oh yeah. So after that was over, I kind of phased out of that, and the millennials just took it and ran with it, and they did their own thing. But shortly after that, I received a phone call to participate in a radio show in Baltimore, the gospel radio station that was in Baltimore. And when I went there, I performed, did the radio show, and they asked me to come back the following week to do another show. And when I came back, the host of the show was not there. Cassandra, shout out to Cassandra. The host of the show was not there, so the co-host was like, "Oh no, we asked you to come back so that you can be the co-host of the show. Cassandra's not here today." I was like, "What?" She was like, "Oh, can you do it?" I was like, "I can until I can't. I mean, I can do it until I can't do it. So yeah, let's do it." So I co-hosted the show that day in that top right corner with me over there in the back second row top corner. That was the show that I hosted, and Placida, the co-host. Shout out to Placida and her husband. She's the woman in the mustard jacket in the bottom left. She co-hosted the show. Well, I co-hosted the show with her. And then they asked me to come back and participate in some more interviews and so forth. They asked me to eventually join the team. I eventually joined the team, and then I eventually, over time, became the COO of the team, which was the Elevation Global Media Group. And that was where I created the first podcast. Like outside of my own production. The Millennial Dating Chronicles was something I did for myself, but this was a podcast that I produced by myself. Not by myself. I produced with the team, but I produced, for somebody else, and that kind of spread me into the world of video production. Spent heck of money on equipment, and learned a lot of skills. Learned a lot about editing. Learned a lot about just producing, coordinating, and in those photo shoots you see, that we did the photo shoot for I said all that to say podcast, and then in the bottom left you can see the studio that we created for the business. The Elevation Global Media Group was a studio in Towson, Maryland, and they would do media production, video production. People would come there and shoot their stuff. So I was heavily involved in that. That gave me a little bit windows inside of podcasting, and it allowed me to just spread my wings a little bit. So that's a little bit of my dossier about who I am and what it is I've done over these years. So now let's jump into this book review. So I wrote this book, like I said, 10 years ago. And why did I write this book? Because we were doing an activity in our boot camp. We were doing an activity called Bridges. Bridges is an activity, and this is some examples of the couples that did activity, the Bridges activity, but it's not the couples I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, none of these people in this picture are the couple I'm talking about. But Bridges is an activity where you basically in the woods, and you tell them to source some resources and build a bridge from going from point A to point B. And then you can make the bridges how difficult ever you want them, and add as much difficulty as you did. I know in these activities we typically do if they fall off the bridge, if they step off the bridge, it's sort of like the floor is lava. They step off the bridge, then they have to do some kind of punishment. But anyway, we did an activity with a group of couples like this, like you're seeing, and the husband in one of the groups, he was struggling. He was struggling trying to make it make sense. And his wife was trying to be encouraging, and she was trying to be supportive and not embarrass him in front of these other groups of couples that she did not know, and I think some she did know, or they did know. And so after the end of this activity, we typically do a debriefing, and in this debriefing, we asked a question, what were some of the challenges? And as we were discussing the challenges of that couple, she said that he really wasn't, giving her enough information and enough instructions and so forth. And I asked him, I said, so, why was that? Is that something that you typically do at home? You don't give a lot of instructions? And he said, yeah, pretty much. I said, why was that? He said, because I don't know how to lead. And I was like, wow, I have never heard a man utter out of his mouth that I don't know how to lead. And this was in front of his wife and other people. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And so I began to look back at the previous boot camps that we did from 2006 all the way to 2010, and then look forward from the boot camps that we did until the next few years. And I was able to draw a direct line when we were doing activities like this, or even more difficult activities. I was able to draw a direct line from a woman's ability or willingness to trust her husband and her husband's ability to provide leadership to her. And it became very, very clear to me, like, the reason why she's struggling doing this activity the way that it can be done is because she doesn't trust her husband. And I didn't say that in our activities, but I was able to understand that. And so then I started doing research, and I did more research and did research. And then I decided to start writing down my research. And I said, okay, then let me just make this thing into a book. And I did 3 years of research and writing, and that's when I penned this book and published this book, rather, because the information that I was reading and learning in my hypothesis had gone nobody was addressing it. Nobody was addressing the leadership trust dynamic in relationships. And I was like, I need to write this book. And so that's what I did. I wrote this book and I published it in 2015. So let's jump into chapter 1, shall we? Chapter 1, manage the marriage organization. So this people right here, these are my lunch crew from work. It's my lunch crew. If you recognize one of the persons in the group, Thomas, he was part of the podcast group that I produced for Elevation Global Media Group. I met them at lunch, but I wasn't always a part of their group. I would walk by their table on my way to getting my lunch, going back to my desk, and I would see them, and then I knew a couple of them, and so I would just sit and talk. I would stand and talk with my lunch in my hand, and they would like make jokes, and it was very comical. It was you got to have a tough skin there. But I would end up standing there for so long that my food would get cold, and I'd go back down to my desk and eat my food. So finally they were like, why don't you just sit down and eat? You standing up here for 20, 30 minutes to, talk, just sit down and eat. So that's how I became a part of the lunch group. They accepted me in, and then I became cool with them. And so you likely have some groups of your own that you fit into or that you are a part of, that you are members of. But understanding the group concepts and why it's important is because understanding what a group is, will determine the success or failure of your relationship. It will. The makeup and the structure of your group determines how the members of that group interact with each other. So let's dig in a little bit more. So a group is defined by two factors. A group is defined by two factors. One factor is that it has to be two or more people that perceive that there is unity amongst each other. Two or more people that perceive there's unity amongst each other. With my lunch crew, there was two or more people, and if I would have sat down at that table uninvited, they'd have been like, what's he doing here? Like, why is he here? But because they invited me to the table, there was perceived unity that we were all eating lunch together. That was the thing now. The second factor is that they act in a unified way toward society. We come to lunch at the same time. We all sit at the same table. If you were to see, like when I would see them, I would perceive them, our society, perceive them as a lunch group that I was not a part of. But then as I became a part of that group, other people saw us as a group together. We always ate lunch together. We always sat at the same table. So that is the defining or the characteristics of a group. Now, a organization An organization is a group, but it has two different distinct attributes. The first one is that there's a common goal or purpose associated with that organization. There's a common goal or purpose associated with that organization. And then the second one is that each of the members of that group have different roles and responsibility that lead toward the accomplishment of that goal. And so what does this have to do with relationships and the interaction therein? Some relationships operate like they're in a group. Some relationships operate like there's two or more people in it. There's perceived unity, but there's no common goal. You're not operating all on the same page. You don't have the same goals for the relationship. And there may be different roles. So if there's no goals, you can't have roles that lead to a goal. So that means that your relationship is just a group relationship. It's a group structured relationship. And some relationships operate like they are an organization. There's two or more people. There's unity amongst the two or more people. When I say more people, I'm not talking about no thruples. I'm not talking about no open relationship type stuff, although that exists. But I'm talking about maybe someone has some children. There's unity between the two or more of you, and there's a common goal. You all want to work together. You want to build together. You're planning to go to the next step of your relationship together, whatever that is. Hey, Jazz, RVing with Jazz, how you doing? I just watched y'all videos. Y'all had a great time out there, and I think y'all are in Maryland. No, Virginia, in Chicotee, Virginia. Great video. But anyway, so going back to the point, there's a common goal that you have in your organizationally structured relationship, and you have different roles and responsibilities as it relates to that organization. And then in that way, you are operating as an organization. And so you know how you are operating in a group structured organization when someone has to ask this question, and many of you all have asked this question. So what are we doing? When you have to ask that question, you're operating as a group because there's no identified common goal or purpose to your unified perceived unity, two or more people. And actually the twain can exist in the same space. So you can have somebody in the relationship that operates like a group, and then the other person operates like there's an organization. One person perceives that, oh, we're just kicking it, we're just hanging out, I'm just here for a good time, not a long time. Or like, oh yeah, we vibing, it's what it is. But then there's others like, yeah, we're building something, we're kind of like setting things up, and he's gonna, he has good attributes. I can see him as a good, parent to my child. I can see him as a good partner. I want a partner. I hear that a lot. I want a good partner. So if there's partnership, association, energy that you're establishing, attributing to it, then there needs to be partnership roles and responsibilities. But if you do not have that, then you are operating as a group. And to explain this group organizational dynamic from a biblical standpoint, let's go to the first book of the Bible, first chapter, Genesis chapter 1. Oh. So, did I go too far? Okay. No, I didn't. I think I did. Hold on, let me go back. Okay. There we go. In Genesis chapter 1 and 27, God created mankind. He created male and female. You already know the story. Then in Genesis 1 and 28, he assigned 3 different goals to mankind. He said, be fruitful and multiply. Am I on the right slide? Yes. Okay. Here we go. Sorry. He said, "Be fruitful and multiply." Um, and that kind of is self-explanatory. He wanted you to, make some babies. Because mind you, there was only Adam and Eve on the earth, so he needed you all to be fruitful and multiply. Now, here's what I've learned since I wrote this book, and I learned it from Miles Monroe, who I just love, absolutely love. He broke down this scripture as well, much better than I did, and he said that the be fruitful part, not is because I was taught that be fruitful and multiply was the link, like be fruitful and multiply, have some babies. But he talked about the being fruitful part was meaning be productive, meaning overall productivity, not just multiply, have some babies, but you need to be overall productive. So when I learned that, I was like, okay, I need to shift the way that I'm thinking about what mankind's role is on the earth before marriage and after, because that, as we'll get into, this goal, this role and responsibility does not change after marriage. Okay, so be fruitful and multiply. That's one of the things that you have to do. The second is to subdue it, or subdue means to bring under control. When you look up at the Hebrew word of that, it means to bring under control, to tread down, to make subservient, to bring something that's wild and chaotic or resistant into proper order. That is the subdue factor. So that is the second common goal that God gave mankind. And the third is to have dominion. And dominion, it means to rule over, to reign over, to have governance over something, to exercise some manner of authority, not kind of a destructive domination, but a oversight type of denomination over the earth. And so those three goals: multiply and fill the earth, subdue, and dominion, or subdue and control, and dominion have rule. So why did God want mankind to? We know why He wanted him to fill the. God wanted mankind to fill the earth, but why did He want mankind to subdue, to take control of the earth, and to have dominion over the earth? Because in Revelations, it chronicles a story of how Satan got kicked out of heaven. You already know, he bucked up against God. He thought he was him. He realized he wasn't. The archangel Michael, kicked him out of heaven, and he went down to earth. He was knocked down to earth. And he was ruling and reigning over the earth. And so God's plan was, I'm going to send mankind down to the earth. In Psalms 115:6 said, so God created mankind and wanted to give the earth to them. That was what the goal of mankind was, is to go down to the earth and take back control of the earth from Satan, the devil. But we already know how that story ends, because we messed up, we sinned, we allowed Satan into the space, and now Jesus had to come in and take it out. But that is why He wanted mankind to have dominion, and to first subdue, to take control of the earth, and then have dominion over it. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. And so, question. What are you supposed to be subduing and having dominion over that's independent from your mate, or independent from your spouse or husband and wife, or independent from whomever you are with? Because He gave mankind that common goal. So there's something that we are supposed to be subduing, meaning controlling, and there's something that we're supposed to be having dominion over, means ruling over. Each one of us in our individual lives should have that. So if you could, in the comments, answer the question in the comments if you have something, and then share with me what it is that is. I would love to know what you see me doing now. That's our thing. That's the thing that God has given us to subdue and have dominion over. But what is yours? I really want to know what yours is. And next is, if you're married, did that change once you became a family, once you became a spouse? Did that change? Do you think that has changed since then? That's an interesting question, because some people find value in their marriage, in their relationship, and they find their identity in that. And so I'd like to know, like, is that something that once you got married, you felt like you had a purpose, or you felt like you had something to do? No wrong answers here. Just let me know in the comments. Okay? All right, moving on. Roles and responsibilities. So, in an organizational structure, we talked about the different roles and responsibilities that an organization has. There's a common goal. Now let's talk about the roles and responsibilities. So in Genesis 2:7, God created man, and he became a living being. He breathed breath into his nostrils, and he became flesh. Now keep in mind, the common goal was given to mankind before there was flesh put on him. So it was something that mankind had to do. And he created both male and female in mankind in Genesis 1 already. So this goal is attributed to both male and female. So when it comes to actually what it is that you should be doing, or subduing rather, and what it is that you should be having dominion over, it's not gender specific. It's to mankind. And so after that, the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. That was Adam's role in, as far as the common goal is concerned. That was his role in the common, as far as the common goal. And then now the Lord and God gave man authority to name all the living creatures that were walking along the earth. That was his role in dominion. That was his thing that he had dominion over. He can now, I'm naming all the animals. You a roach, you a bug, you a pig, you a horse. I'm calling you what I'm calling you. That was his role in having dominion in that area. And so the Lord said, it is not good for a man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. Now we're talking about what Eve's role is in her responsibility toward the common goal. Her role was to be a helper, or to be a helpmate, depending upon which version of the Bible you reference. And he created woman to be able to do that. And you already know the story of how that happened. I'm not going to go into all that. But I want to highlight the fact that Eve's role, woman's role, was already created before she got here. And so when it comes down to actually the first family, you have the common goal, which is the three things that I talked about already. Then you have Adam's role in the common goal is to impregnate her and to fill the earth. And Eve's role is to carry the seed and give birth to a child. That's their role and responsibility toward the common goal of fill the earth. To subdue and have dominion over the earth, Adam's role was to work the land and take care of it. Eve's role was to be a suitable helper for Adam. Those were their roles and responsibilities. So when you look at marriage as a group or an organization, marriage does not operate like a group. God designed marriage to operate like an organization. Now, I am not saying that this context of group and organization is, so your finances, okay, Jazz, thank you for sharing that. What do you mean? So you're are you saying, Jazz, that you're I'm saying RVing with Jazz, but Jazz is your name. Your last name is shorter for me. Are you saying that your responsibility to subdue and have dominion over the finances, that was before your marriage and now continues after? Is that what you're saying, Jazz? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for putting that in there. But to the point I was making, that I'm not saying that marriage is specifically designed by God to be an organization. I'm not saying that I'm not putting that in the Bible. But I'm saying that the structure of marriage and the structure of the organization are the same. Because when you look at the organization, it consists of two or more people. In marriage, there's two or more people. If there's an organization, there must be a common goal. We already talked about the common goals in marriage. and then the different roles and responsibility that lead toward that common goal. We talked about that. In marriage, the man's role and responsibility is to work and take care of it, while the woman's role is to be a suitable helper for that. So that is the structural organization, how God designed a marriage. Now, the question is, does your relationship operate like a group or an organization? I did this review for the couples group that Bernie and I mentor, and this set off a very good conversation, I'll say. This was during the pandemic. It was during Zoom, and during a Zoom meeting. And this was what I did. I muted I said mute your microphones and have the conversation amongst each other, and then we'll come back in 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll discuss. Man, people came back, and you can see the faces on the Zoom like, oh wow, this is intense. It went much differently than I thought. I thought because all the couples that were there were married already, they would be able to say, okay, our stuff is an organization. And then, but it wasn't like that. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you believe your organization is structured at. You got 2 or more people? I hope you do. Is there a common goal that you all are working toward? What are you supposed to be subduing? What are you supposed to be subduing individually? What are you supposed to be subduing as a couple? Have you identified that? Some people do not really understand their purpose for why God brought them together until years after they got married. For Bernie and I, we didn't understand our purpose until year 3, and this being the course of it. But up until then, we was just married. We was just having a good old time and being married. But it wasn't until we found out our purpose that we actually started having different roles and responsibility toward that. Just trying to do exceedingly better with financial matters, specifically with having multiple streams of income. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff, Jazz. Okay. Yeah. So in the question, in the comments, answer the question if you would like, please. Okay. How much time we got? Okay. Chapter 2. Let's talk about leadership. So let me give some backstory about this. Let me go back. I studied. I got a master's in organizational leadership when I went to college. I went to college years later after I graduated from undergrad. I went back to school because at the point in my life, Bernie and I it was like 6 years into our marriage, and Bernie and I had learned. I had learned everything that I learned in my premarital counseling, and all that stuff was obsolete. Nothing that I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. After 3 years of marriage, all of my premarital counseling, that stuff was dead. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was faking it for another 3 years. And I was able to get by. Bernie didn't figure it out. But I felt like I don't know what I'm doing. I need to be a better leader, and I don't know how to do it. I know I'm reading all these books about leadership. That's when John Maxwell was really big on his books about leadership. That's when I read the Miles Monroe books about leadership. So I knew I was reading all these books, but I didn't know how to lead. I even talk about on my book, on the back of the book cover, I talk about how the Bible doesn't really teach you how to lead as a husband. There are a lot of examples in the Bible of husbands who are leading. There are a lot of examples of leadership in the Bible that you can extract and apply to your marriage. But the Bible is not really good at instructing you how to be a leader as a husband. It gives heck of examples, but it doesn't give instruction how to do it. You have to basically have a Bible study or have a mentor or have somebody teach you the Bible so you can understand the principles of leadership that apply to a husband, and then have somebody mentor you how to do that. So I was like, I didn't know. So I said, I need to go back to school. So I went back to school and got my master's in organizational leadership because, one, I wanted to be a better husband. That was the main reason. And 2, I wanted to find a better way to run my business because we were doing the boot camp, but we didn't know what we were doing. So I went back to school to learn how to be a better husband. I went back to school so I can learn how to coach and be a better consultant to the couples that we were in. So I said all that to say that I studied leadership from the lens of how it impacts relationships. Even though my master's is in organizational leadership, I did my complete thesis on using team building activities in marriage workshops to improve the marital communication among couples. That was my whole thesis. So I had to do research into the relationship space. I had to do research into the leadership space, and I combined them in my leadership milieu. And I ended up graduating one at the top of the class, and gave the speech at the graduation. So I kind of felt like I did a good job with that. Anyway, when talking about leadership, I really focused on my research initially. So leadership. I was doing a heck of a lot of research in leadership. And what I realized is that the field of leadership is really a new science. It's only been studied for about 100 years now. When you compare that to the study of medicine or study of science, different kinds of science, those are hundreds of years old. But leadership is it's a new study. It started in the 1920s. And what was happening is every decade there would be a new theory of research. So in the 20s, the research was focusing on like the great leaders of the world, what their background is and why they're such a great leader. And these people are great leaders. But then a decade later, in the 30s, they were like, well, those were great leaders, but how are new leaders going to become better leaders? Well, you have to be born leader. Leaders are born. They're not made. They're born. And every year, every decade rather, each series would debunk the previous decade. So the 40s debunked the 30s leadership theories, and they were talking about organizations and groups and how groups are formed and organizations are formed. Those were the eras of the 40s. 50s, 60s are all a different thing, but they all were debunking the previous decade's leadership research. I got interested in leadership in the 90s, and that was during the team building era. So when I did my research on team building, and it was in the 2000s, I was thrown off because I built my whole business on team building activities. But I learned in my research that it was proven in the 2000s, after the 90s had gone, the 2000s debunked the 90s team building leadership myths that said that the team building activities were not productive when it came to activities that they were doing in workshops or going out in the woods and trust falls and all that kind of stuff that was real popular in the 90s. That stuff was not productive when you would take that back into the office. The reason why is because you weren't working on real life stuff. You were working on play stuff. When it came to real life stuff that you were working on in the office, that skill set didn't transfer over. So I had to, in real time, while in school and running the business and going to work every day, completely change the focus of our boot camp so that I was in line with the new information that I was finding. Anyway, so out of all that, I was able to identify in each one of the decades, there was 4 themes that seemed to permeate each of the definitions or each of the hundreds of definitions of leadership and theories that came out. And what I noticed was, and I researched all 100 years from the 20s all the way up to the 2000s of research. And what I noticed that the 4 themes were, one, that there was a process, that leadership was always a process. It was not just one thing that you did one time and you were done. It was a process that had multiple steps, a series of steps, and that period occurred over time. Number 2 was that leadership involved influence, which is the act of controlling or persuading or causing an entity to move, respond, or act or not act in a certain type of way. You had to persuade someone to do something. So it was a process of persuasion or process of influencing. The third one was, it always had to do with people, a group of 2 or more people. I think somebody has a quote, I think John Maxwell, I heard it from John Maxwell first, that if you call yourself a leader and you look behind you and nobody's following you, then you're just taking a long walk. Something like that. But there needs to be people that are following you in your leadership. And then the fourth one is that there needs to be a specific direction or common goal or result that this group is working toward. So there's a process of multiple steps. There is influence that's involved. There's people that are involved, and then there's a purpose that's involved. And so when I was writing this book, what I did not want to do is like, well, I'm going to come up with a new definition of leadership that's unique to me because I am writing a book and therefore I need to have a definition of leadership. No, I didn't do that. So in my research, I found a definition of leadership that fit all of those different themes in one definition. And that's going to be our working definition. I got it from Ralph Stockdill in 1950s. And the definition is leadership is a process of influencing the movement of a group toward a particular outcome. It's the process of influencing the movement of a group toward a particular outcome. I got to call him back. This is going to be our working definition for leadership as we move throughout this book review. And so let me just tell you all a secret, because you know me and Bernie have been working with couples and doing relationship consulting for 25 years. And we've seen hundreds of couples, more than hundreds, into thousands. I don't know how many thousands, but it's a lot. This definition of leadership is why we are so productive at working with couples. One, because we understand the structure of a relationship being an organization or a group. When I talk to couples, I can just have general conversations with them. And based upon the words they use, I can decipher if she or he thinks their organization is a group or if it's if their marriage is a group or organization. If their relationship is a group or organization. I'll ask some questions to find that out, or what they think. And if it's a group, then I already know that the point of conflict is that they don't have a common goal that they're working toward. I already know that. So it's just a matter of finding out what that common goal is and find out, are y'all in alignment with that? We had a couple come over one time. They were married, and she wanted some counseling for their marriage. And they were in a bad space. We didn't know it at the time, but they came over in two cars. And when we got there, you know, she was sitting down, then he pulled up and he came in and he sat down. And he was like, I don't even know why we're here. And I said, so you didn't know that you were coming here for some relationship consulting? And he was like, no. I was like, so do you not want to work on your marriage? He was like, no. And I looked at her, I was like, do you want to still try to make this marriage work? She was like, no. I said, well, we have nothing to talk about here then. Okay, y'all can leave. So the meeting lasted 2 minutes. We didn't even charge him for anything because we didn't do nothing. Because there was no common goal. They didn't want, one person wanted the marriage, the other person did not want the marriage. But until when he said, I don't want the marriage, she was like, I don't want the marriage either. So I guess that was their common goal. And they worked toward a divorce, toward that common goal. But we can identify, you know, based upon the structure of their marriage, what their issues could possibly be. And we just need to find out what that is. And then second, I can talk to a couple and identify which one of these things is off in their relationship. And then what we end up doing is just walking through the steps of finding out, okay, what are your expectations? What are your expectations? And how can we meet each one of your expectations? So that's our big secret for working with couples. So if you take this information and work on your marriage, by all means, go ahead and do so. So leadership only exists inside of an organization. It does not exist inside of a group structured organization. Leadership only exists inside inside an organization. The reason why is there's sometimes so much conflict in organizations is because they are structured like a group, and someone is trying to provide leadership, but leadership only exists inside the organization. So I just read my notes here. So think of a football team. I'm a Cowboys fan. Shout out to the Cowboys football in the back. I live in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, so a lot of here are Commanders fans or whatever their name's going to be. Um, think about the football coaches for both teams. They both are coaches. They both are leaders, rightful leaders in their own right. Um, if they are going to coach on their team, they have control, influence, common goal, and the ability to persuade the team members, toward that common goal, which ideally is the Super Bowl. But once you step outside of your organization, your leadership is nullified. If the coach for the Cowboys goes over to the Commanders and starts barking out, instructions and orders, they're going to look at him like, what are you doing? You don't belong to this organization. Get out of here. We don't recognize you. So your leadership is only valid inside of your organization. If you think about the football team, this example I wrote in the book, U.S. versus Russia, I can't say if that's even valid anymore. I don't believe that. I don't know if that's valid anymore. But it used to be that the Russian president couldn't tell the United States president what to do, and vice versa. Apparently, there must be some organization going on that we don't know about, because there's some things that are different now from when I wrote this book 10 years ago. But theoretically, one president of a country cannot go into the other country and start dictating to those citizens what it is that they should do or shouldn't do. A church. My pastor can't come over to your church and talk about, so I need you to change the service around. You need to cut this service down. You need to cut this praise and worship songs. You need to add some more praise and worship. You need to add a dance ministry. No, you can't do that. Why? Because you're not a part of the organization. Each one of these people are leaders in their own organization, but that leadership, one step outside of it, it does not apply. And in marriage, as a husband, you are the leader. Allegedly, you might be. We'll talk about that in your marriage, if your marriage is operating like an organization. If I come into your marriage and start telling your wife what to do, there's gonna be some hands thrown, and there's gonna be some issues thereafter. And this is one of the reasons why I think men don't like therapists. Primarily, men don't like therapists. That used to be the case. I think men are open to therapy now. When I wrote this book, men didn't like therapy. But typically women prefer therapy because they want help in making their marriage better. Men don't like it because you're not a part of this organization. I have not acknowledged you. Like my lunch group that I was a part of, I have not been given permission to come sit down inside this lunch table or at this lunch table, and I have not been let inside this group. So if a therapist rather comes over to you and starts saying this is what you should do to make your marriage better, unless he has been accepted into that relationship's permission structure or their organization, and they're working toward a common goal of making their relationship better, then typically men don't want to hear it. And that's why I'm very cautious when a woman asks me to go talk to her husband. I used to get those requests all the time, especially in church, because it's church, it's Deacon Heath, Brother Heath. Could you go talk to my husband? Could you go talk to so and so and so and so? And I would be like, you need to let him know I'm going to talk to him. You need to tell him that you told me about your business, and you need to let him know that I'm going to come to talk to him and ask him if it's okay. Then you let me know, then I go talk to him. Because for me to step to a man and start telling him what he needs to do in his household, I'm not a part of that organizational structure. I haven't been allowed in that. I remember I was one of the ministers at my previous church said, could you talk to this woman about the situation she's having with her husband? And I was like, okay, sure, no problem. I was eager. We do relationship stuff. We can help this couple. And I went and talked to her and she was like, yeah, I don't really like him like that. I'm cheating on him. I'm sleeping with this other dude. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. In the church parking lot, what is going on? This is too much information for me to take. Now I got to do something with this now. So she ended up vomiting on me. That's what me and Bernie call it. When we go to somebody and they share their business with us, and we just are not ready for it. She ends up vomiting on me all the stuff about her marriage. And so I haven't yet spoken to the husband. The husband doesn't even know I'm talking to his wife. And he definitely doesn't, he definitely would not appreciate all the stuff that she shared. He doesn't even know the stuff that she's sharing. She's like, I'm cheating on him and I'm not going to stop seeing him. I'm like, okay. So I had to try to figure out how to navigate my way into the permission structure of their marriage before I can even bring up any of that information. And so I eventually did, and we worked with them for several years. But yeah, that's an example of, how your leadership does not take effect until you're inside a organization, and once you step outside that organization, there is no leadership in that you have outside of the organization. So, open discussion: have you ever had someone try to provide leadership that wasn't a part of your organization, and how did it go? Have you ever had somebody? This could be a work environment. This could be a relationship environment. Somebody who's telling your business or coming to you, telling you what you should do. Let me know if that's happened to you. I'm interested to know. I got more stories than I could tell. But let me know. All right. Where are we at? We're almost done, I think. Next. So if you are in a relationship, if your relationship and it operates like a group, then there can be no leadership. Because, like I said, leadership does not only operates within the organization. So if your relationship is operating like a group, there is no leadership. It cannot exist. There's no common goal. There's no roles and responsibility toward that goal. So nobody is leading to that goal. Leadership, the concept of leadership, the definition of leadership is not present in your relationship, because there's no common goal for you to lead to. There's no different roles and responsibilities. And none of that is happening. So therefore, you are not leading, and no one is leading. You are just in a group structured relationship. You are just there. Even if you're married, you have different roles, you have different responsibilities, you have different goals. And how that can look is, you have one goal. I think I wrote in the book, you have one goal that's, you want to save money. But the other person wants to go out and have fun and do fun things with the money that they have. Yes, you all are married, but there's no common goal in your finances regarding how your money is spent. And there's no common goal in your marriage about the decisions that you make with money. And there's conflict in your entire marriage because you cannot come to an agreement on the decisions about how money is spent. So you have your money, they have their money, and each of you all are doing your own things. I'm not telling you something that's hypothetical. I'm telling you examples that I'm familiar with. So nobody is leading in those type of relationships. And I have to make that clear because it's something that people need to understand, the dynamics of what leadership looks like in their relationship, and what leadership does not look like in their relationship. And so let me step through real quickly certain things that leadership is not. 5 things leadership is not. And these qualifiers do not define leadership. They define the qualities of leadership. So leadership is not character specific. You can have a good supervisor and you can have a bad supervisor. You can have a good leader. You can have a bad leader. You can have, and we're seeing that now in certain government structures, I'll say. The qualifiers that describe the type of leadership that's provided does not define the leadership. A lot of times, I used to do this too, and a lot of people would do this as well. They would define leadership based upon whether the leader was a good leader. He's not a real leader because real leaders do these things. But leadership is not character specific. You can be a good leader, you can be a bad leader, as exampled by what's going on in the government. The person that provides leadership is the leader. The person that provides leadership is the leader. And I have purposely, up to this point, not said the word leader, because sometimes the word leader and leadership get used interchangeably. But I didn't want to say it prematurely because I wanted to stipulate what a leader is. And a leader is the person that provides leadership, period. Whether they are a good leader, whether they are a bad leader. They are the person, they are the leader, the ones that are providing leadership. Okay, leadership is not person specific. What I mean by that is leadership is not relegated to a specific person. A leadership in a marriage can be the man and can be the woman. Leadership is not authority. In the context of a marriage, in a Christian household, the husband is supposed to be the leader because his role and responsibility has been delegated to be the leader of the marriage in a Christian household. That's operating the way God structured it. It's not everybody's. I'm not talking about your household. I'm talking about in a traditional Christian household. But that means that that person has authority. It doesn't mean that that person is the leader. Just because you are in authority does not mean that you are the leader. The example I gave in the book was an example of a pickup basketball game. I have a team of 5. I got next, so when the people who lose, I got next, I'm picking 4 people to play with me. I have the authority to pick next. If anybody comes up to the basketball court and is like, who got next? I got next. That means I have authority to pick next, and it's respected. I pick my 5. I get on the court. I can play basketball, but I'm not a basketball player. There's a difference. But there's somebody on who I pick that is a basketball player, and everybody's running around following his order. People are following what he's telling. He's telling people what to do. People are following his leadership. So even though I'm in authority, I'm not the one that is the leader. So a man and woman can be and do provide leadership in a marriage. It is not just relegated to the man. And we'll get into that later on. But leadership is not person specific. So a woman is a leader in a marriage. The husband is a leader in the marriage. It's not person specific. But when it comes down to it, which is what I listen for when I'm talking with other couples, is who's providing the leadership. I was talking to I can't say that. I was talking to somebody, and it was a husband, and he was big, I'm the leader energy. But he was also, what type of energy is she on? Okay, I'm going to match that energy. And so whatever energy she's on, I'm matching her energy. And it produced a lot of conflict because she felt like there were some things that are not being done the way that she wanted. So she was kind of salty about those things. So he matched her energy. So I was like, oh, so then she's the leader. She's the one that's leading because she's establishing the emotional tone of the household and you're following her. He was like, yeah. Whoever is providing the leadership, that's the person that's the leader. Okay, let's move on. Leadership is not direction specific. I won't go through all these examples, but it doesn't matter what direction the organization is going. If there's somebody providing leadership to that direction, whether it be good or bad, is irrelevant. As long as the person that's providing the leadership is the one who's doing the leading. I mean, meaning that there's somebody doing the leading, whether they're going in a good direction or bad direction. When I was writing the book, Enron and Bernie Madoff were very popular at the time. Enron was a big company that was like a huge financial company, and they were, stealing money, and they basically went bankrupt. But whoever was the leader of that company was actually the leader of that company. whether they went bankrupt or still stayed in business. Bernie Madoff was the leader of a Ponzi scheme, and he's now in jail. I think he died. I don't know if he did or not. But anyway, he was leader of a Ponzi scheme, and he led those people in stealing their money. You look at biblical examples, Abraham and Sarah. It started off bad, then it turned good. Abraham was leading. And Ananias and Sapphira. It started off, well, it actually turned out bad. It started off bad and turned out bad. But Ananias, if you don't know the story, a prophet told him, bring all your money to, or all the things that you want to bring for an offering to the place where we're going to be sacrificing the offerings. And they kept some stuff in their house. And God told the prophet, and the prophet asked them, just like, why did you ask Ananias, why did you keep that money when you said you was going to give it? Why'd you keep it? And he was like, because I just wanted to keep some. So God struck him dead. Bam, bam, dead right there. His wife Sapphira came in after he had just died and said, what happened? He said Ananias said that he kept some money and he was going to give it to the offering, but he didn't do it. And he was like, did you keep some money? Yeah, I did too. Dead right then and there. That's a very brief story, but that's a story about leadership. Ananias was like, no, we're going to keep this money. And Sapphira was like, okay, no problem, we'll do that. But if I wonder if Ananias would be like, no, let's get that money, let's go, or let's get these pigs or whatever they're going to offer. Let's go get this offering like we said we was going to do. Ruth and Boaz, it turned out good. Ahab and Jezebel, it turned out all the way bad. And really, I think Jezebel was the leader of that marriage because she was the one who was telling Ahab what you need to do. What you need to do is so-and-so, you need to go out there and take that man's land. You need to go out there and kill Elijah because he out here making us look bad. And everything that Jezebel said, Ahab went ahead and did. So I think Jezebel was leading that marriage. Priscilla and Aquila, my favorite couple in the Bible. It turned out good. So the direction that you go, good, bad, it doesn't matter. It's as long as there's somebody providing leadership. Number 4, leadership is not outcome specific. Win or lose, leadership is present. If you have an organization, leadership is present, win or lose. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of Kansas City Chiefs, Jalen Hurts, quarterback Philadelphia Eagles, both are leaders of their team. Patrick Mahomes lost the Super Bowl last year. He's still the leader of his team. Jalen Hurts won. He's still the leader of his team. You get the point. And leadership is not purpose specific. So wherever there's an organization, leadership must be present. Basketball, work, church, marriages, leadership is present. All those factors factor up into leadership being present inside an organization. So, that is the end of chapters 1 and 2. That was a lot. Okay, I did a little bit over an hour. I wanted to keep this to an hour, but I know chapters 1 and 2 were a lot, so I had to lay the foundation. In chapter 3, we're going to talk about leadership in marriage. That's when we start digging into what the Bible has said and what people are doing about marriage and the leadership therein. So if you have any questions, leave your questions in the comment, and I'll answer them next week in my next review. I'll be back next Wednesday to do chapter 3 at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Let me know if this was good for value for you. If you appreciated it, please give me a thumbs up. I'm out here trying to help marriages. I mean, this is not doing anything for me. I'm not getting anything from this. I'm not benefiting from it in any way other than operating in my purpose to help people. So if this is helpful to you, then please give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody who you know needs it. Because based upon where we're going, I'm sure you know some people that are struggling in their relationships or want to find a better way to lead in their marriage, or want to find a better way to be a helpmate in their marriage. So just send it to them, and so they can be aware of it, and then that'll be helpful for their marriage. Bernie and I are out here trying to help people as much as we can. I've been wanting to do this review for a long time, for over 2 years, but now I found some space to do it. So Yeah, share this if it's been beneficial to you. If you want to get the book, His Leadership, Her Trust, it's on Amazon. There's a link in the description of this video. So thank you for tapping in with me, and we will see you next week. Okay. I got to figure out how to close this down because I don't know how to do it.